Hey guys, welcome back to the Super Awesome Game Channel. I'm John, and today I wanted to talk about my wishes, hopes, and dreams for Diablo 4. Now, this is like what I'm looking forward to, the expansion number 2 and beyond. Some of this stuff I know could not come in any sooner than expansion number 2, maybe even expansion number 3. So I'm looking way out. These are things that I just hope would come to the game at some point, things that I see that I think the game needs, and stuff that's sort of on my wish list for stuff that could come in the future. Um, I'm an old school gamer. I'm 52 years old. I've been playing games since I was a little kid. My first thing was an Atari 2600. Actually, no, that's not true. I actually got an Odyssey Pong system before that. So I've been playing games essentially since games started, and I was into Diablo the first game as soon as it came out. I got all my friends into it. We were all playing. We used to have LAN parties when Diablo 2 came out. We were playing that to death. Diablo 3 came out. My brother and I and a couple friends, we played that for the entirety of its run. You know, from the moment it came out all the way up to when Diablo 4 started, we were playing that game. Diablo has always been one of those games that I fall back on whenever there's nothing else to play. So I might pick up, Helldivers 2 and play that for a month or two, and then I'll come back to Diablo when that game kind of dies down. I'll pick up a good role-playing game of some kind, or a Final Fantasy, or get GTA or Red Dead Redemption. I'll get Star Wars Battlefront or one of these Jedi Survivor games or something, and I'll play that to death, and then when I'm done playing it, I go back to Diablo. Like, Diablo's the game I always go back to and always continue to play. When I want something to do and I just want to run around and bash some monsters, I go back to Diablo. So, and it's been that way since Diablo 2. It's been that way during Diablo 3, and it's now that way with Diablo 4. So I want to see Diablo succeed. I want this thing to become something cool and new. And I think that games need to evolve over time. I know there's a lot of traditionalists out there that want these things to stay rigid and stay the way they were. I want it to be just like Diablo 2 and no change in it at all. But the thing is that games have to evolve or they die. And we're seeing that with stuff like Path of Exile 2. We're seeing that with Last Epoch. They're adding like so many character classes and adding so much endgame and so many systems and things, and stuff's evolving, and I think Diablo needs to evolve with it. We need a lot of systems. We need to innovate. Things need to change. Things need to be added to the game that really bring some innovation to the genre and change it up a little bit. And yeah, a lot of my ideas are going to make it seem like Diablo's turning more into an MMO, and I know a lot of people really want it to stay single player, but the truth of the matter is it started out as a multiplayer game, and it needs to lean more heavily into that multiplayer aspect and bring more stuff to clans, bring more stuff to groups, and some of this stuff may seem a little bit controversial that I'm going to bring up on this list. The other thing about my list is I'm just going to read through it and blast through this thing because I went into detail in a lot of these and it ended up being a 3-hour video. So I don't want a 3-hour video. I want something that's more like a half hour to 40 minutes. So what I'm going to do is blast through all my ideas here. And then if there's something that we need to go into more detail on, I'm going to do a separate video going into more detail on that. Like, there's a mode that I think we should add to the game that I'm going to call Conquest mode. I'll get into it as I'm talking later when I go through my list, but I think that needs a video on its own to explain what I mean by Conquest mode in detail. We've got a lot of ideas that came out of our guild and out of our crew to make this thing happen, and I think that that deserves a video on its own. And there's a few other topics on here that deserve a video on their own, so I'll probably be doing some of that in some future wish list videos down the road. Please excuse the knockings. My neighbors are working on stuff, and every once in a while it comes through. All right, guys, so here's my list. Let's get into it. My wish list for Diablo 4. Diablo 4 needs 2 new classes with the expansion, or they could do 1 new class if they give us ascendancy classes. Every character could have 2 or 3 choices to elevate themselves and ascend to another class type at a certain point, maybe level 40 or 45 as they're leveling up. and that would make a big difference in our character choices and be on par with other games. We need more equipment slots, such as belts, shoulders, cape, maybe 2 more ring slots. We need to add more item types. We need the red item type, which would be ancient items. These could be something pulled from the lore that would be very, very special, very unique. You might only be able to use 1 red item per build. We need to add set items. These would be green items. Maybe the sets are sets of 2, sets of 3, sets of 4. I don't think we should have sets that go up to 6 or 7, because that would take up like every slot we have in the game with just 1 set. I think that's wrong. They should be limited to 4 or less. I think every single character should be able to use a 2-handed weapon and a 1-hand offhand, just like the rogue. I don't see why the rogue is special and they get 3 weapons when every other class only has 2. So I think every class should be brought up to the rogue's level and have 3 weapons. The barbarian has 4 because that's part of its character class, so they're special. We need clan features such as a clan stash, a clan guild hall, or a house. We need clan trophies like for our back and for horses that show the clan flag. We need clan dungeons. We need raids for the clans, and these things can be at like 4, 8, or 12 players. I think clans should be able to form groups of up to 12 players and make big raids in the game. There should be clan events, clan world boss hunts, things like that. I think we need a conquest mode. Imagine a place where players choose from one of 2 factions. One faction starts at the top, one other at the bottom. There are outposts, there are fortresses, there are castles, things to take over, roving packs of monsters to kill. It's not direct PvP, but it is whoever takes over more castles, more fortresses, more outposts at the end of the week wins that round. Whichever faction takes over more, kills more, wins that round for the week and gets an extra bonus cash. All players get rewards just for playing. The winners are the ones who get a bonus. Gives you another endgame activity. Conquest mode. I think it'd be really fun. We need a trade bazaar or a marketplace, somewhere to sell items for in-game gold. Somewhere for players to trade and sell items for in-game gold. Make it a big marketplace or bazaar, some kind of thing like that. We need some crafting in the game, so there's a reason for blue and yellow items. The blue magic items need a way to be upgraded to yellow. The yellow items need to be upgraded to orange. And so on. Orange items can be upgraded into 1 greater affix gear. Stuff like that. I think creating something like maybe a billet. A billet is something that when forgers, if you've got like a place where you make swords, like if you talk to anybody who actually hammers out swords on an anvil, they use a billet, and those billets form the weapon So maybe you could add billets to the game. A magic billet would upgrade a magic item to a yellow. A rare billet would upgrade a yellow item to an orange. And a legendary billet would upgrade a legendary item into a one with a 1 greater affix, let's say. Stuff like that. You could add more billets to make it a 2 GA, add more billets to make it a 3 GA, and so on. It'll give a reason for blue and yellow items to be in the game again. I think every player should have an occupation they get to choose. Players can choose from 1 occupation, and they would craft items related to that occupation. Those players could then sell those items on the marketplace, and you could have very special occupations, like maybe someone can make back trophies, someone can make pets that are clockwork or magical pets, things like that. Just think out of the box. You could have the standard stuff like players can make armor, players can make weapons, players can make rings and amulets, stuff like that. Players can make runes, they can make gemstones, they can make sigils, they can make, all kinds of things. Potions, elixirs, incense, like just anything you could think of. Imbuements for weapons. I think imbuements would be a really cool thing to add, so you put an imbuement on a weapon to add a little bit of poison damage or fire damage on it, or stuff like that. Any of the different elements could be added to the weapon say like for an hour. You click the imbuement, it's on there for an hour, then it wears off. Stuff like that. I think Masterworks need to be locked in at 4, 8, and 12. You should have the option of either resetting at 4 back to 1. If you don't want to reset, you lock it in at 4. Pay an absurd amount. I don't care if it's like 100 million gold, whatever it is. Just let me lock it in at 4. Then you go from 8. If you reset at 8, it goes back to 4. Then you lock in at 8 when you find what you want. When you're working towards 12, when you reset, it goes back to 8. Then eventually you'll find something you like on 12 and lock that in. I think Nightmare Dungeons need a choice of reward at the end. Have different boxes. Let me get like 5 million gold at the end of a dungeon run if I want. Get a box that has greater affix items in it. A box that has more obdicite or more crafting materials. You could choose only one box at the end of each Nightmare Dungeon run. Something like that. Nightmare Dungeon bosses also need to have more experience given, I think, when they die. I really think that if you kill a Nightmare Dungeon boss, you should get maybe twice as much experience as they currently do. Seems like everybody just runs the Pit or Infernal Hordes to get experience when you're doing later higher Paragon. So maybe make the Nightmare Dungeons on par by doubling the amount of experience that the boss gives at the end. It would bring Nightmare Dungeons up to be on par with the other ways. I personally like running a Nightmare Dungeon much better than a Pit or a Infernal Hordes. So I want my Nightmare Dungeons to be better. In the Pit, speaking of, I think you should lower the boss health, probably cut it in half. There's a number of times where I've been running through like a Pit 100 or a Pit 90 even, and I can do it in like 5 or 6 minutes, and then it takes me 8 to 10 minutes to kill the boss. Sometimes I run out of time and I can't even kill the boss in that 10-minute time that's left. I'll do the run in 5 minutes, get to the boss, and I'll be there for 10 minutes. He doesn't die. I run out of time, and I kill him after the timer runs out. That seems ridiculous to me. There should be no reason, if I can do the whole dungeon in 5 minutes, that it should take me 15 minutes to kill the boss, you know? So I really think that just cut the hit points in half and you'll probably be fine. I think the Pit bosses, cut their hit points in half, you'll probably be fine. I could live with running through the dungeon and taking 5 minutes to clear the dungeon and then 5 minutes to kill the boss. It's when it's 5 minutes to clear the dungeon and 10 minutes to kill the boss that I get upset. You know, it's out of balance. So cut those boss health points in half. For the Pit, I think when you're doing the Pit, it should be easier to do it as a group, not harder. I understand why Nightmare Dungeons and the above world, the overworld, gets harder when you're in a group. That makes sense to me because those areas are set at a certain difficulty. But the Pit, I don't think it should be that way, because if I can clear a level 90, this is what currently is happening. I clear a level 90 Pit. My friend clears a level 90 Pit. We group up together, we cannot clear a 90 Pit. We have to step down to like 84. So why is it that when we're grouped up, we have to do a lower Pit? We should be able to go to Pit 93 because we're grouped up and doing more damage. So I really think that in a group, it'd be more satisfying to be able to push yourself further in the Pit in a group than you can while doing solo. And that would also give players a chance, like players who cannot do rank 100. Say, I can't clear a level 100 with my character by myself, but if I get a group of 4 people who can all clear 95, then maybe the 4 of us together can clear a 100. It's giving us incentive to group up. It's giving us a reason to push further as a group, and we are more likely to push further than we could if we were solo. I think we should have cosmetic vendors for every event in the game, every single thing. So let's say, like, you currently have a cosmetic vendor for the Dark Citadel, you currently have cosmetic vendors for PvP. I think the Pit, I think Nightmare Dungeons, I think Infernal Hordes, I think Hell Tides, all those things should have some kind of coin that drops. Even events, when you have limited time events, I think when you have those reputation, where the reputation keeps going and you get a cash every time you turn in for rep, I think that cash should have event coins, and all these things should have some kind of cosmetic vendor that you go and spend those coins on. So you'd spend pit coins on the pit vendor and get some cosmetics. You'd spend infernal horde coins on the infernal vendor and get some kind of cosmetics. Helltide coins would drop out of the chests in Helltide. You'd eventually save up and get some Helltide cosmetics. If you're doing an event like the March of the Goblins and stuff, that event would drop event coins, and you'd go to a vendor and get cosmetics out of that vendor. So you've done it with the PvP, you've done it with the Dark Citadel. Let's get some cosmetic vendors for all the other systems that are in the game. I'm a collector of cosmetics, and I will farm to no end to try and get all the cosmetics. So let me farm all the cosmetics from all these different systems in the game. Speaking of events, the events need more substantial stuff to them. I think all of Kyovashad should be decked out for the event whenever there's an event. And it shouldn't just be that one little corner. The whole frickin' town should be like having things hanging from the rafters and decorations all over the place. Make an event feel more substantial than it really is. It just feels, every event just kind of feels lackluster, and you're done with it in a day. I want an event to last for the whole event and just feel like it's a real event. Have some repeatable quests, have things to work towards, like I said, event coins that I can keep getting and use for cosmetics and various other things. I think we need a clear damage indicator in our stat screen. Right now, attack power doesn't tell you anything. You can raise the attack power and actually do less damage. So that number seems meaningless. There has to be a number behind the scenes that's in the programming. Whenever I hit an enemy, it starts with that as the base number of damage that it's calculating from. Whenever it calculates damage, show me that base number. It doesn't have to include crit strikes or overpower or any of those other weird things that just add on afterwards, but show me the base number that it's working with right from the beginning before it adds on all the multipliers and other things, so that I can know if I put a different piece of gear on and I see that base number of damage go up, I know that I'm going to do more damage with that piece of gear. Because right now there's someone I have a girl in our guild who put something on that it looked like more damage. It said 60 instead of 15. She thought she'd do more damage. She went out there, her attack power went up like 40,000. She went out to fight some monsters and was doing less damage than the thing that said 15. So she put the 15 back on, her attack power went down, she did a lot more damage. So it wasn't clear to her that item was better than the new item she got. Her current item was still better than the new item she got. So something needs to be clear as a clear indicator when you switch items that your damage is going up or down. Now we got the seasonal powers and the seasonal theme. I think the seasonal powers and seasonal theme should go to Eternal and Seasonal, basically because I've got friends and people in our guild that only return when there are expansions, because that's the only time they have new content to play. They would return if the seasonal content was on Eternal. And I'm not saying everything for the season should be on Eternal. The seasonal journey and the battle pass and all the stuff all the rewards, all the cosmetics, everything you get for playing the season, keep that on the seasonal realm. I'm just saying bring the powers over and let people in Eternal play with those powers and screw around with them. They can mess with them, they can play around, they can juice up their characters, but they can't get any of the benefits or reward of playing seasonal. I just think that would be a really good idea because it would get Eternal players to return to the game every season. They got something new to mess around with, and I don't see any downside to it. In fact, I think from a business point of view, it only makes sense that you would want your Eternal players to return every season and play the game for a little bit. Because right now, there really is no reason for Eternal players to come back. And why, as a business, would you alienate half of your clients? You wouldn't do that. It doesn't make any sense business-wise. You want people to return, you want people to play, and giving them seasonal powers allows them to come back and have something to do, a reason to play. And like I said, I'm just saying the seasonal powers alone. None of the rewards, none of the benefits, nothing else. All that stays on seasonal. The seasonal journey, all those quests and objectives we do, all the rewards we get, the battle pass, like all that stuff can stay on the seasonal. I'm just saying the powers alone should come to the Eternal Realm to give seasonal players something to do. There should be a new world boss added to the game. I actually think they owe us a world boss from the expansion #1 from Vessel of Hatred. I think every expansion should have a new world boss. Having only 3 world bosses gets a little repetitive. I think that we should have 4 right now, and by the time the next expansion comes out, we should actually have 5. And because the world boss appears in different areas, I think that should be one of the few things that comes with the expansion, regardless if you buy it or not. I think there should be a couple of things that just get added to the game when the expansion comes out, whether you buy it or not, and the world boss should be one of them. Because the new world boss should appear in any location that world bosses appear in. And I think the world bosses also should get a few mechanics. Like, I'll give one example. Imagine if Avarice, when some of those gold nuggets appear on the ground, the gold rocks, like, what if they, instead of just exploding after a little while and doing damage to us, what if they actually gave him a shield, a golden shield of some kind, and we actually had to attack and destroy all the rocks before he was attackable again, before he would take damage again? That's kind of a mechanic I'm talking about. Maybe add something to some of these world bosses that actually makes us go do something else, like step on a trigger, open a doorway, destroy some stuff that's giving them a shield, things like that. Like partway through the fight, they can activate, we have to go and take care of, and then we can continue the fight once that's down. Things like that just add more flavor to these world bosses. I think elite monsters should have their names in different colors. Back in Diablo 2 and Diablo 3, when you could come across like a blue monster, you knew it was elite, or a yellow monster, you knew it was like a champion or super elite or something. I think that should come back to Diablo 4. I don't mean color the monster itself. I mean, the monster should stay, so we don't want to break the logic of the game and like take ourselves out of the immersion. I think just the name at the top, whenever you target a monster, the top of the screen has a name and a hit points bar. I think that name should be colored blue, yellow, gold, red, purple, whatever, depending on the level of the monster. If it's elite, super elite, champion, boss, whatever, those names should be in different colors. I think that you could expand the microtransactions in the store. Have some of those items that are in the bundles as single items for sale. You could have items for sale that are 200, 300, 400, 5, 6, 8. You know what I mean? Just single items that are for sale for a cheap price. Because there's a lot of times where I have 300 or 400 points left, and I'm not gonna spend $20 or $25 to get it up to 2,800 so I can buy a bundle. I'd rather just spend the 300 or 400 on something, but there's nothing in the store that is that cheap. I think you could sell single weapon cosmetics. You could sell a single pet or a back piece by itself, something like that for the low price, and people will buy it. So get some single items, some weapon cosmetics, just one sword in the store. We'll buy it. Halfway through the season, there should be a mini battle pass. A lot of people like myself, I'm done with the battle pass in about 2 weeks, the one that has 90 tracks, 90 ranks on it, 90 reward levels on it. I'm done with it in about 2 weeks. I think if at the mid-season patch, if you added something small that maybe 30 reward tracks on it, it would be something just to get you back in and sort of playing for again. It's a few more rewards, just one more armor set or a couple of weapon cosmetics in a track that's maybe only like 30 long. Just a small battle pass as a second battle pass halfway through the season might be pretty cool. I think your mercenaries should be on all the time. If you're in a 4-player group, they should allow you to have mercenaries with you while you're in the group. Otherwise, what's the point of having mercenaries in the game at all? I felt this way with Diablo 3 as well. 90 to 95% of the time when I'm playing Diablo games, I'm playing in a group with friends. So I don't get the benefit of the mercenaries ever. I never did when I was in Diablo 3, and again here in Diablo 4, I'm barely ever seeing the advantage of having a mercenary. I'm always in a group, constantly playing with other players, so I don't see why the mercenary can't be with us when we're running through a nightmare dungeon or something like that. You can have minions that can handle as many minions as you want. The game can handle 12 people fighting a world boss, with a couple of them being necromancers and having 20 minions. What does a mercenary add to the game that would make it so that it physically can't render the screen? I don't think there's any problem with having a mercenary on the screen. So there doesn't seem to be any reason to have him go away when you have up to 4 people in a group. Now, I would understand if you did like 8 or 12 people and that group became a raid group, that you might want to declutter the screen and get rid of mercenaries then. But that would only be for like those circumstances where you're doing a raid, where you're doing 8 or 12 people in a clan. So, but when you're just a regular group of 2, 3, or 4 people, I don't see any reason why the mercenaries shouldn't be with you. I also think that mercenaries should have their own items. In Diablo 3, we could put items on our mercenaries, and I feel like in Diablo 4, we've taken a step backwards with the mercenaries. They're not as developed or not as unique and not as interesting a thing as they were in Diablo 3. And I'm not talking about a lot. They don't need the full tree and a full-scale itemization thing. I think they could just use a helmet, chest armor, and pants, maybe in a weapon. So just give them 4 items. And I think those items should not be items that are currently in the game that are used for players. They should be a certain set of items that are just for mercenaries, and we put them on. Maybe they add 3% attack speed for us. They give us a little bit of lucky hit chance. Maybe they give us 5% resist all. Maybe a 5% boost to armor. Stuff like that. Just little things that help out the player if you're in the area and using the mercenary while that guy's on. If you give them those items and give them those correct combination of things, like I said, just those 3 or 4 things: helmet, chest, pants, weapon. Keep it simple, but let us change them in some way and give a little bit more customization. You know what I mean? I think we should be able to juice ladder bosses like Varshan and Duriel. I think that when we give the tribute into the altar, when we put in those eggs or put in those stones or the hearts or whatever we're using, we should have a secondary slot for juicing them. Maybe adding in like 100 million gold, and they'll become twice as powerful and take twice as long to kill. 2 times the hit points, 2 times the damage. We pay something in addition to that tribute, and it makes them more powerful. You can then double the chance for them to drop a mythic unique if we juice them and do it on a harder setting. I think that you could have that as just a secondary thing, sort of like how the Undercity has a tribute, and then there's a secondary thing you can put in as sort of like a bribe or whatever they call it. Do that with the bosses. You have the first thing where you put in what you're putting in, like the 2 eggs and the 2 shards to get Duriel, and then you have the optional third thing. When you put that in, it juices the boss, makes it twice as much damage, twice as many hit points, but you also have double the chance of getting a mythic unique from having that, having it harder. Everything should stack to 999. I see no reason why some things stack to 20, some stack to 50, others stack to 99, and yet other things stack to 999. Everything in the game should just stack to 999. I think the opals from the vendor of curiosity, the murmuring opals, they need to be higher than 2,600 or whatever we can get right now. We need to be able to carry around like 10,000 or something like that, because it's ridiculous. Maybe even 100,000. It could be infinite. I don't care. It's ridiculous right now that we can only carry like 2,000. We're constantly hitting that mark and having to just leave obols on the ground. So raise that cap. Let us carry as many obols as we want. We need more Undercity choices for the Undercity. When we put in our tribute, I think we should also be able to, like, say you got the legendary one, which has a chance of getting ancestral gear. I think that if you juice that one up with, like, say, make me pay 100 million gold or whatever, and then it's a chance to drop an item with 2 GA or an item with 3 GA. There's currently nowhere in the game where I can reliably farm for items that have 2 greater affixes or 3 greater affixes. And at the point where I am with my characters in the game, I don't need anything that has 1 greater affix on it. I'm just throwing those things away. I'm trashing them, I'm destroying them, I'm selling them. I don't even look at them most of the time. All I'm concerned about are items that have 2 greater affixes or 3, and with unique stuff that has 4 greater affixes, because I need to improve. I need my character to improve, and the only way they're going to improve is by getting stuff with more greater affixes. And there's currently nowhere in the game where you can target farm those things. I think the Undercity would be a great option. Let me pay a huge tribute and have the guaranteed effect of getting something with 2 greater affixes or more on it. You could also do something with the Obdicite one, where it could be like pay 100 million gold and you double the amount of Obdicite that drops. Pay 100 million gold on the experience one and it doubles the experience you can get when you kill the boss at the end. Stuff like that. Pay 100 million gold and I guaranteed to get a legendary rune out of the end of it, you know. So there's not enough stuff for me to spend my gold on to sink that in, and I think you could make these prices ridiculous. 500 million gold and it would work out. You know, it doesn't seem that difficult to get billions of gold in this game, and there's no reason to even have that much unless the marketplace. You bring the marketplace in, maybe some of the items will be billions of gold, and that'll be a reason to have all this gold. I think the tree area where the Tree of Whispers is needs portals for your friends, for people who are in your group. That's a small thing. I think it would be easy to add. I think we desperately need a lot more stash space. Right now, the way the game works is you've got 6 different character classes. The expansion will have 7, maybe 8, if we're lucky, if we get my way. And in the future, there will just be more and more classes added to the game. And if we have ascendancy classes or anything like that, you could see this sort of problem creeping in. Right now, I have 6 classes. I have 6 characters. I have 1 of each class. I've actually got 3 different sorcerers. That's basically what I keep and what I play on Eternal and mess around with every single season. All the time when I come back to the game, I'm messing with one of those characters. What it means now that I can have the armory where I can do 5 different builds for each class, each character, what it means is that I end up having a page for each character. So right now with 6 characters, I technically need 6 pages. But I also need a page in my stash for all the rune stones. I also need a page in my stash for all of the boss materials. I need a page in my stash for all the scrolls and other consumables like elixirs and sometimes incense and things like that I'm trading back and forth between characters. So I need 3 pages to handle all of the boss materials and the potions and elixirs and scrolls that I'm collecting and things like that, and all the rune stones and things. I'm not going to throw all this stuff away and just destroy it or throw it on the ground. I want to keep it for later. You're going to need it at some point. And the way that it works right now is I'm running out of stash space. I don't have enough stash space to keep all the equipment for 5 different builds for 6 different characters. I don't have enough space to keep all the rune stones and all the boss mats and everything. 6 pages just isn't enough. You're really going to need about 10 pages right now as it sits in the game. And every time you add a character or add a class, you're going to need another page for that character or class. So down the road, we're going to need 11, then we're going to need 12, then we're going to need 13. You're going to need a whole lot of stash space, and currently it's the way it is, it's just not enough. I don't know if that means making dedicated stashes, like 1 dedicated page for boss materials, 1 dedicated page for rune stones. You know, I don't know if it means doing that, or if it just means adding more stashes like to the game. We just need something that can do it, because right now you make mules, you make extra characters just to hang on to stuff, and it's not efficient. It's not fun. You have to stop and interrupt your game to bring in one of the mules, throw something in the stash, come back on with your other character, pick it up, use it, then put it back in the stash what you didn't use, go back on with the mule character, pick all that stuff back up. It's ridiculous. So we just need a rework on the stash system. I don't know if that means you got to do it from the ground up or if there's something you can do in the short term, but stash space definitely needs fixed. We need at least 10 tabs right now, and you're going to need up to 12 or 15 as you go into the future when you get more and more character classes brought into the game. Well, there you go, guys. My list of what I'm wishing for Diablo 4 in the future. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm sure a lot of these topics will bring up some other suggestions or controversy or discussions and arguments, so feel free to put all that in the comments below and let's talk about it. What did you like? What did you hate? All right, guys, thanks a lot for watching. I do appreciate it. Stay awesome out there, everybody. We'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya. The Super Awesome Game Channel is part of the Super Awesome Geek Show Network. Please check the description below and subscribe to the channels that interest you.